Found a new one. Damn. Yes. What a great song. I needed this. I needed to pick me up, man. Man, I have had one hell of a busy week. It's been crazy. Welcome back, GEOHOLICS, episode 254. This is when producer Sean would usually say 254. But yes, episode 254. We got a great conversation lined up. Producer Sean is not with us this evening. He had a prior commitment, playing golf, of course. That's what he does. So we'll have to figure it out without him. You think we can do it, Will?
I think we can figure it out. I think we can get it done.
So we've got Will Wing with us, and we have Russ Hall with us. So real quick, I'd like to catch up with you guys just a little bit. First of all, thank you for being here. Russ, what's new with you, man? I just saw you, like, it seems like yesterday.
Yeah, so much has happened, too, since then. No, not really. So we got to catch up at Topodot, and we had a blast together, you, me, and Sean. It was fun. I got to play my first golf for the first time in 20 years, actual golf, and it went as well as you would expect. Apologies, Mr. Brian Elby. And yeah, and I ended up getting an award from Topodot, so it was pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what award was that, Russ?
It was an evangelist award for evangelizing people in reality capture.
So you're a cult leader.
Yes, I am now a cult leader, and I want to say you guys crushed the keynote, I thought, you and Sean.
Oh, man, thank you so much. Yeah, so Sean and I got invited to do the keynote for the Tuck 25 conference, and totally outside of our comfort zone, right? I mean, when Ted reached out and asked me to do it, I'm like, heck yeah, we're going to do it. You don't even think about it. Heck yeah, we're going to do it without even asking Sean. So, Ted's like, that's awesome. I love it. Hey, Sean, guess what I volunteered us to do? What's that? The keynote address at the Tuck conference. He's like, what the hell are you doing? We can't do that. But we had a blast. It was so much fun. All the response, I think, was pretty positive. I appreciate you saying that, Russ. And the funnest thing was, like, we just kept it casual, almost like we were doing a podcast, And I kept calling out Russ. He was in the crowd, of course. And I kept, like, calling out Russ for dumb shit.
Yes, he did that.
Russ is like a celebrity.
He's like, how many petabytes of satellite? I'm like, what? He's asking me these crazy questions.
Anytime Sean and I didn't know what we were talking about, like, Russ.
Yes.
You guys look good. I saw the pictures, and you looked very professional. It looked like
it was fun.
Oh, one other thing I learned was William is a bad texter backer.
This Will right here?
Just kidding.
No.
Yes.
Not this Will Wing.
I'm only teasing. Yeah.
How are you doing, Will? What's new, man? You've been busy too.
Yeah. It's been a whirlwind last 2 weeks. Spent a week down in Whetstone, Arizona, doing a 1,400-acre boundary survey.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then hustled back into town and had to play vice president for the Arizona New Mexico conference. And
nice.
Ben was there. It was a great conference. I mean, we haven't had a live conference in Arizona in 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the last in-person one we had maybe 55 people. So
what?
Yeah, it was sad. So this one combined with New Mexico, we had over 250 people.
Nice.
The facility, I was a little sketched out about, a casino in Tucson. I'm like, but this place was nice.
Was it?
I'm sure. Yeah, Ryan can vouch. It was.
Ryan's shaking his head.
I mean,
everything they did well.
They did
as a casino and as an organization. Also, the conference was run so great, but the property was perfect for what they did. It was awesome.
That's great.
They did great.
Good to hear. Well, congrats on a successful conference.
Awesome. Likewise.
Did you win? Are you the vice president? You said is that recent?
Yeah, this year.
Yeah. Congratulations. I didn't know that. I saw it on LinkedIn. Yeah, congratulations, man.
Did you win an award also, Will?
No.
Only Russ. Russ.
I won the award to talk at lunch in front of everybody with about 5 minutes notice. Dustin came up and was like, "Hey, you want to come present with me real quick?" I'm like, "Sure."
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I hang out with Dustin and Colin.
Oh yeah,
super cool.
Got to meet Colin.
Yeah, I saw Colin in California on Tuesday.
Oh really?
This was a crazy
guy. Gets around.
He
Man.
does. He does. I want to hire him. Just FYI. Let's get on with this. Our episode sponsor, of course, is Emlid. Have you heard about this Wingtra ground thing that they got going on?
I like the name. I really like
Super cool. Yep. They've teamed up with Wingtra, obviously, and they have the orange Wingtra UAV, and then they have the orange branded Emlid receiver, and they sell it as a package, and it's like a one-stop shop. It's got everything you want. It automatically connects, the Wingtra tablet, provides step-by-step setup and guidance for fast and error-free base and checkpoint setup. You just kind of hit the ground running with this thing.
Yeah, I've hired guys that use it, and the product that I get back is always
good.
It's stellar. Yeah,
always good. To find out more, simply go to emlid.com. We talked about the updates. We were at Tuck last week. We're getting lined up. We're going to be at Hexagon Live this year, next month.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's coming up.
It's like 4 weeks, I think. Crazy. It'll be our first Hexagon Live event. They got us set up. It's in Vegas, of course. So anybody listening, make sure you get to this event. I hear it's going to be a doozy, as I understand it. So should be a lot of fun, and look forward to meeting a bunch of new people for sure. Topodot Song of the Week. That was a good one. Topodot, of course, as the industry leader in digital twin production from Point Cloud Data. But did you know that Topodot offers a total data governance solution for free? Talked about this a lot at Tuck last week. Take control of your data with TopoShare. Create your own data warehouse, which is super cool, and it's free, by the way. Share and manage access to project data and streamline your production process at the lowest possible cost. I think free is like the lowest possible cost. So, to find out more about that, go to topodot.com. Russ, putting you on the spot, buddy. Tell us about that opening number.
Well, let me see what I can recall from memory. Everclear, Amphetamine. Everclear is an American rock band formed in Portland, Oregon in 1991 by singer-songwriter and guitarist Art
Alexakis. Just a little assist
my
for
memory,
you there, Russ.
My memory was a little off. Thank you. The band's early lineup included bassist Craig Montoya and drummer Scott Cuthbert, who was later replaced by Greg Eklund in 1994. They gained prominence in the mid-1990s with their major label debut, Sparkle and Fade, in 1995, featuring their hit single Santa Monica. Everclear's music blends alternative rock with elements of power pop and post-grunge, characterized by want to assist me again, Ryan?
Alexakis.
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 The two words Alexakis introspective. I mean, somebody was working you over there with that two-word combo.
Who comes up with this stuff?
That was my Everest right there, and the band's energetic sound.
Well done, Russ. Well
Thank
done.
you.
And are you Canadian at all? Do you have any Canadian roots in your family or anything?
Which of us?
Russ.
Me?
Yeah.
I do, actually.
I knew it, because anytime you make the slightest mess up,
I hear that.
sorry. Always apologizing. I personally am a huge Everclear fan. I was really happy when our guests this evening picked them as their favorite band. We had the opportunity to see them a couple times. Really good, fun band for sure. All right, we are in the Altera studio. Altera Central is the authorized premier Trimble dealer for surveys, mapping, GIS, forensics, and marine equipment in Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico. They also offer field supplies and can deliver them right to your job site, all backed by a service department with one of the fastest turnarounds in the nation. To find out more, simply go to alteracentral.com. Moving along, the Esri Weekly Pro Tip. Are you ready for this, Will? Esri is advancing the power of geography for business, government, and society by making the world's most powerful GIS software, of course. To find out more about Esri, go to esri.com. What do you got for us this week, Will?
All right. Well, this week's quote is by Phil Knight, an American businessman and philanthropist and co-founder of Nike. This quote is, "Play by the rules, but be ferocious."
I love that one.
Right? And I got to do a little bit more on him, because this guy's he's got some pretty cool creations. He used his wife's waffle iron to create the first Nike waffle sole.
Oh my
Their
God,
shoe.
that is awesome.
So,
what a great story.
Yes. Like a lot of husbands have borrowed their wife's stuff to create great things throughout history. Like,
I can only imagine.
Wasn't there a famous cereal, like Wheaties or something, was like accidentally cooked on a stove too long, and that's how like one of the cereals came about or something.
right?
Where'd Fruit Loops come from then? God only knows. All right, let's move on. I do love that quote. Though. You know, it's like play by the rules, be ferocious. You know, kind of push the limits a little bit. Sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness, type thing. You know,
Right.
versus permission. That's kind of how I live my life. But we are. Now is the time for the GeoSearch Career Corner, of course. Looking to hire top talent in the geosciences, GeoSearch has you covered with a free job posting for all GeoHolics listeners. As a full-service recruiting company, they specialize in connecting top professionals with the right opportunities.
Awesome. With their ad posting service, your job listing reaches nearly 34,000 engaged LinkedIn professionals, maximizing exposure to qualified candidates. So don't miss your chance to build the dream team. To claim your complimentary job post, email liz@geosearch.com today.
As always, happy mapping. We don't need Sean anymore. We can do this. We don't need this guy. Wow.
You can't teach timing like that.
He's working himself out of a job. All right, finally, the GeoNet count of the week. I love this part of the show. GeoNet, if you guys don't know about GeoNet, first and foremost, largest blockchain-based RTK network, providing RTK service precise enough for professional survey, construction, and drones. The count, go for it, Will. Oh no, Russ is doing this.
Oh, you
Russ,
threw me off. I was gearing up for the count this whole
Sorry.
time. So they're up to 16,432 satellite miners. That's up from 15,839 last week. Thousands of cities, 145 countries. Geonet.com. Be sure to click on Find a Hex tab to see if you can put one on your house or place of business and start making that money.
Start making that money,
That's
making
what
that
I'm
green.
about. I'm
Absolutely.
about to, right after we get off here.
Yeah. We ordered 2, as a matter of fact. I ordered 2.
You got it done. You got it done.
I did, yeah.
I was going to say, Sean's not here to give you shit about
I
this.
know. I thought for sure he would like text you and be like, make sure to give Ken shit about the GeoNet thing. But mission accomplished. So GeoNet, this is like breaking news, and Bad Elf have teamed up to provide this amazing offer for $999.99. I don't know why they just didn't do 1,000, but that's
Right.
what they told us. You can get a GeoNet, or you can get GeoNet RTK services for 5 years. So basically for $1,000, 5 years. GeoNet is also offering to place a base station should there not be a station within 40 kilometers radius of your operating area, with a commitment to 1 5-year subscription. That's a long sentence. And they're doing this with Bad Elf as well. So Bad Elf and GeoNet are partnering. To find out more, go to bad-elf.com/GeoNet.
Wow.
A lot going on there. I love when our friends of the program team up and do really cool stuff.
Yes. I was going to say, if you have any
Super cool.
call
It's like
Larry.
Smith meeting Wesson.
Smith and Wesson, yes, exactly. So we had Wingtra and Emblem team up. Now we've got GeoNet and Bad Elf teaming up. I feel like a facilitator.
Yes.
Amazing. This is really good stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Our guest this week, as usual, is sponsored by Trimble. This is kind of awkward. Together with their worldwide distributor partners, the Trimble Geospatial team is working with current and future generations of surveyors for a more sustainable future. To find out more, go to geospatial.trimble.com. We've got Ryan Rezzelle with us. Ryan, born in Erie, PA. Education, he attended University of Maryland, go Terps, where he achieved a BA in criminal justice, as well as a BA in sociology. He also played football at Maryland, which is pretty cool. Hobbies include, we got to follow up. There's so much we got to follow up on here. A lot to unpack. Archivist junker, never heard that term before, but we are going to circle back. He's got an eBay store. That makes sense so far. He's passionate about photography. He's a movie buff, and he is a Kansas City sports fan. His job title is sales manager, reality capture US West at Leica. As far as career highlights go, I'm not even going to get into it right now because we're just going to use that as part of our conversation. So, Ryan, first and foremost, thanks for your time and thanks for being with the GEOHOLICS.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege, especially with all the laughs that we've had and are going to have. This is going to be a good time, I feel.
It's always a good time.
Yes.
We can guarantee you a good time if nothing else.
Yes.
So anyways, talk about growing up in Pennsylvania, and kind of how, your youth, whatever may have shaped your path to where you are now.
Erie's an interesting town. I feel like when I was a a kid, my formative years were most of the 1980s. It was kind of in the end of life of its, major site of being an industrial town. And that just was kind of fading away. And I was a big kid as a kid. I was 5'11", 290 pounds in the sixth grade. In fact, when the teacher was calling roll for the first time, he's saying the names and he goes, and he stuttered and it sounded like he said rhino. And I'm sitting in this desk with my knees up by my ears because it's so tiny and I'm just such a huge kid at 5'11", 290. He goes, good God, you are a rhino. And from that day forward, that's how I've been known as Rhino. I do, sign my work reports and things like that, Ryan Rezzelle. But, in my personal circles, a lot of people call me Rhino. I'm 6'6", 290 pounds now, so I still have some of that size. But growing up in Erie as a big kid like that actually worked to my advantage in a number of ways. I mean, there were a lot of coaches that wanted me to play ball for them, whether it be football, basketball, baseball. I was a track and field athlete, field, shot put and discus, not a lot of track in my days. But that really helped kind of, shape those years. I grew up, my brother and sister are both younger than me. My sister's the middle, my sister's the middle, my brother's the youngest. My folks still live in Erie, so I do have the pleasure of returning. And I am a huge Erie, I'm going to go ahead and say it, I'm an Erie apologist, because anybody that's from there or even lives there now, they're like, we hate it. I'm like, it's truly a wonderful place. There's some great natural resources. There's some great parks and things like that. I mean, when I go to places, I'm not in the house. I'm out. I'm walking trails. I'm taking pictures. And so Erie for me is a place that I really hold in high regard. I worked as a younger person for my father's construction company, Rezzelle Construction Company. He operated for over 50 years. I think it's probably been 10 years since he hung it up now. But, that was a wonderful experience for me. It gave me, I learned a trade. As a football player, whenever we were in like preseason run-up, he'd have me throw blocks for his masonry guy. Just it helped keep me in shape. But there was a lot of great opportunities for me. Thanks a lot to my parents, a lot to the teachers that kind of saw that I had potential and took an interest in me, and I kind of ran with that the best I could. But I really look back on my time in Erie fondly, and I do enjoy opportunities to get back there. All that said, when I did have the chance to run off to the University of Maryland to play football and be a student athlete at Maryland, I was pretty thankful at 18. At age 18, I was ready to escape Erie. I can look back fondly and I can enjoy my trips back these days.
That's cool. That's awesome. How far is Scranton from Erie?
Oh, gosh. I don't know the exact mileage. I'd say it's probably close to 250 miles. Pennsylvania is an extraordinarily long state. It's very similar to Kansas. I occasionally will drive to Denver, and I drive across the long, slow uphill climb across Kansas to get to Denver. Same thing with Pennsylvania. I mean, anytime we would need to go to Philly, or even when I was driving back to school at Maryland, I mean, it was 360 miles from Erie to College Park, Maryland. It's just a long state, so I'd say 250 miles.
Yeah, when in doubt, 250 miles. Right.
But, it was an unfortunate moment in the 2000s, of course. We were the third largest city for most of my formative years. And then, suddenly in 2000 and whatever, Allentown took us over, and they've been widening the gap ever since.
Yeah. The reason I bring up Scranton is because I'm a huge Office fan.
The Michael Scott Paper Company, or Dunder Mifflin.
Yeah.
I think I've watched that show at least 9 or 10 times, all the way through.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Yes, I have too.
There was an era when just being from Pennsylvania got like a backslap from people like, that's awesome, Michael Scott. And I'm like, yeah all right. It's my cousin. It's like, okay.
Michael Scott for the state, and you got Rocky for Philly. Neither of them are real people. There's statues there.
That was a great show, though, no doubt.
It was awesome. Absolutely.
When I was in elementary school in northern New Mexico, one of the songs we had to learn how to sing was the Erie Canal. So I still remember that. Yeah. You always know your neighbor. You always know your pal. If you ever have a job on the Erie Canal.
There you go.
Well, that is a little further north. Of course, that's up towards Niagara Falls and some of the, our Canadian neighbors to the north. But I grew up, reading about Erie Canal and, folks going over the falls and barrels and things like that. I do joke with people. I feel like I grew up practically Canadian. We watched Canadian broadcast television before we had cable. over the air radio from Canada. And it just, I was exposed to a lot of Canadian culture in the 80s. It was an interesting time.
So you're a bit of a music guy. Do you have any favorite Canadian bands?
Well, the Bare Naked Ladies.
Bare Naked Ladies is a good
Let
one.
me tell you something. Like, it's an awkward name for a band, even today, because not everybody knows who they are. I'll never forget. My wife and I had gone to a Bare Naked Ladies concert, and I was Kansas City Police at this point, and a buddy of mine, his daughter lived in our neighborhood. I mean, he lived in the neighborhood. His daughter babysat for us. And so I'm driving her home. She's probably 13 or 14 at this point. I'm driving her home. I'm like, yeah, Tracy and I went and saw the Bare Naked Ladies tonight. Have you ever heard of them? And she goes, no. And I'm like, this is instantly a problem. Like, well, they sang the Big Bang Theory. And then I'm saying Big Bang. I'm like, I'm just going to get you home and I'm going to get out of this situation and text your dad that I swear nothing awkward happened.
Yeah.
But no, it's just funny. They're a great band. Awesome. I've loved them since I first started hearing them over the radio from Canada. And they're such an upbeat, honestly, very family friendly music. We've taken the kids to see them a couple times. You're more likely to hear a couple F-bombs dropped at an Everclear concert than a Bare Naked Ladies concert for sure.
Definitely. How about Tragically Hip?
Oh, I'm familiar. The Tragically Hip was a bit more jam bandy, and that I was never that much into that. I mean, I'm familiar, but I never fell in love with them.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Well, anytime we talk about curling, or anytime we talk about Canada, we have to talk about curling. Have you tried curling?
It's funny. I was here. I've been here in Kansas City for 20 years, and one of my best friends played for the Chiefs for 8 years, and he mentored Jared Allen when he was a younger football player here, and so my tightest ties to curling were cheering Jared on when he and a couple other pro ballers thought they were going to become Olympians. And they were almost immediately, those dreams were squashed when they realized, I mean, they're great athletes and there's no debating that, but it isn't just a great athlete to be a great curler. It's a career and a lifetime of honing those skills. But a little ice bowling was never, whenever it was on Sundays, Wide World of Sports, I guarantee you my dad and I would have been watching though. I enjoyed curling as a younger person on TV.
So intriguing. No doubt about it. So how did you manage everything in college? Like playing football and of course, getting the 2 degrees that you had. I mean, was that pretty challenging?
My freshman year it was. In fact, I was as straight-laced as they came in high school. And I experienced some things in college that freshman year that I had never experienced before. And it led to a slightly corrupted academic semester or two. And I had to kind of recalibrate myself as to how to perform at the college level. I had a great time my freshman year. I just didn't have a great academics. I mean, it wasn't awful. It wasn't terrible. I was eligible the whole time. But after my freshman year, I committed to myself that this was to myself. It sounds a little vain, but I was like, I will never get a B again. And from that point forward, I never got a B again in any of the work I did in the undergraduate programs or the graduate program. So juggling everything was a challenge. It really does take that freshman year to acclimate yourself. I mean, college football is basically a full-time job. In my era, we weren't being paid for it. There was no NIL. There was no transfer portal. You got to your school and you played for them for 4 or 5 years and you went to work. The upside of that is part of what carried me through that era. And it's part of what I think is missing from the game today where, I had teammates that I was with for 5 years. And we lifted each other up at every turn. You have these guys that are playing in 4 and 5 schools in 4 and 5 years of their college career. They don't make those deep friendships that fast. So they have teammates, but they don't have, deep friends that truly love each other and look out for each other. And so those kind of things in college, I really think, especially being away from home, that family is what helped me kind of drive through all that and be successful in what I was trying to do.
It's definitely a full-time job. Yeah, I mean, anyone that plays college sports knows that. I mean, if you can come out of there getting A's and being a college athlete, you're going to be a great employee or a great business owner one day. And I mean, hard work sells itself.
What I found over time, whether it's been here in my days at Leica, whether it was either of the 2 police agencies I worked for, whether it was college, working for my dad, is that you get out what you put in. And the hard work 100% will drive success, and success feels good. And so I did things that were hard because I knew they were going to make me better. And that's really like a lot of how I drive my day-to-day decisions is like, is this have value or am I wasting time? And if it has value and is going to add value to my work, to my teams, to the companies, or just, to the world in general, is it good for the community? I do a little volunteering on the weekends at a thrift store that does transitional housing. I shared with you guys some of the work I do with the sexual assault nurse examiners. I mean, like I try and lead a complete life where, I do things, I buy things, I share things with my family, and we have adventures, but I also give back wherever I can, try and mentor younger folks, just do anything I can to help lift those up around me. And I've just found that, like, if you live that way, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to stumble, you're going to skin your knee, but just get up and keep trucking, and there's good things coming down the road.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Absolutely.
Everything, I can't remember who said it, but everything you want is on the other side of hard. I love that quote.
Yep. Yes.
Yep, that's a good one. Rush, you didn't tell me we had like the nicest human being on the planet.
I know.
As a guest
So,
this evening.
so when you asked earlier if who had a Canadian in her family, I thought for sure you're talking to Ryan. Just between how nice he is and then the bare naked ladies, I was like, this dude's Canadian as they come. But no, I guess
awesome.
not. Yeah.
So
but
we got to
go
we got to
ahead.
get talking about your career because it's so interesting. But I have to circle back on the archivist junker name. That's awesome. Talk about that a little bit.
When I was a kid, my father must have said to me 100 times as a youngster, "You would save shit if it had a handle." And like, look,
I never heard that.
look,
That's a Midwest saying.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
But so I mean, I would pull stuff out of the trash. I loved garage sailing. I did a lot of garage sailing with my mother as a child. I mean, like, and there were the things that I would be drawn to wouldn't be like normal things. They were like an old computer in the 80s. It was more like a dispatch center where it was like a communications radio, and there was a bunch of glass tubes. And I was like, I don't know what that does, but I want it. So I would, bring it home. Old newspapers, old pieces of machinery, like anything like that, where I could sense the history in the item. I would bring it back into the house. And, where I've it's kind of narrowed down to is a lot of vintage ephemera around Americana. I love amusement parks. We were a big amusement park family growing up. I love finding old guides for Cedar Point or Kings Island, Kings Dominion, places like that. And so, when I say the junkest part in that, I love archiving all this. I'm saving it for something. I don't know what, probably the estate sale after I'm gone. But I feel like I have a sense of history around me with all the things that I collect.
So cool.
My wife would use the air quotes around collect also because she would side with my dad on this one. Fortunately, about 6 years ago, we moved into a newer, bigger house, huge basement, 3-car garage. And I'm like, dear, I got lots of places to put this stuff. Just let me keep bringing it in.
There is a fine line between collecting and hoarding, though.
That's true.
Yeah,
so true.
I'll tell you sometimes.
I'm not saying you are.
No, you can say it, Russ. I'm here to
No,
tell you, you're not far off. I mean, there's times when I'm sitting amidst the filth and I'm like, and it's not filth. I mean, I keep it in good order, but sometimes the piles get stacked so high it doesn't matter that they're in an orderly fashion. It's too much. We tend to have a garage sale a year. I mean, early, I wasn't involved with sales until I came to Leica, except that I've been involved with sales probably the full 10 years preceding. When I say I'm an archivist junker, we would buy out estate sales, we would buy out storage units, and we had a vintage place where we were selling things. We would have, when we were doing that, we would have several garage sales a year. We typically do about one a year now, and we clear a lot of that excess junk out. We're piling the piles in the garage, and we're planning for something in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I hope, so we can minimize the piles and restore order in the house.
What's the coolest thing you've ever found in an estate sale, or I mean, to you, or just in general?
So probably the coolest that's been agreed upon. I mean, if we can get past the several urns of ashes that I've recovered, and in each instance, when I recovered an urn of ashes, I took it to the nth degree to try and return them to that family. I mean, never, that was probably the thing that upset me. Not upset me, but it never sat well with me that this ended up this way. So I would always try and do that. And out of all the people I ever tried, only one ever took me up on it. But probably the most interesting thing, and it seems to be pretty universally agreed upon, there was a guy that was amassing B-25 bomber parts. The original B-25 bomber that was used in the Doolittle raid was manufactured at the Fairfax plant here, where they make the Fords now. There's a Ford plant at the Fairfax Center here on the Kansas side of things. And this guy was amassing parts, and so I got this storage unit for $175, and within it were tens of thousands of aircraft parts from an original B-25 Mitchell, the B-25 bomber. And here's what I'll tell you is that, so we were always in it. I collected the things I wanted to keep, of course, but we would always, sell things that we got, and that's kind of what funded the fun of what we were doing. We were out hunting for treasure. We would sell some of it. We'd keep some of it. Well, those B-25 aircraft parts, like, the only people that were really looking for them were people that were restoring an aircraft as a part of like a charitable operation. So anybody I'd call, they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to donate them?" And I'd be like, "No, not yet." I don't think we're there yet. And so I was connected with a company called Aero Trader out of California, and I'd bought this unit for $175, cleared about $2,000 on some smalls that were in it, and then that guy bought everything from me for $10,000. And I tell you what, this was back in this was like 2008, 2009. It felt like we hit the jet. That was probably our best payday off a single buy. And the fact that it started at $175, it really felt right.
Unreal.
Wow.
That is awesome. Talk about, there's so much to unpack here. I just want to keep going. What about like the sports memorabilia you mentioned? Like, what's your prized possession there?
Well, there's a helmet over my shoulder. My best friend played for the Kansas City Chiefs for 8 years. He played his final season with the Jets. His name's Eric Hicks. He was number 98. When he wrapped up, he was their 4th all-time leading sack getter. And thanks to Chris Sackmaster Jones, he's number 5 on their list now. But of the 44 and a half sacks that he had in his career, I hope that number's right. It might be 46 and a half. And if he ever hears this, he'll tell me about it. But one of those sacks was of Tom Brady. And I have that helmet on my shelf over here, a helmet that was buried in the chest of Tom Brady, bringing him to the pavement. Yeah.
Please
so that's
that.
No,
I'm kidding.
I do have a lot of like neat stuff that's important to me. I mean, really with the sports stuff, I collect anybody that I ever played with or knew or played against. I like collecting their things. Mike Schmidt was my favorite ball player, Philadelphia Philly, classic third baseman. I have a PSA 8 of his rookie card that I hold pretty close in the sports card realm. But those are probably it. I mean, really the things I collect now, I don't buy things. There's a lot of people chasing treasure because they put these treasure cards in pack. You can buy a pack of cards and get a card that's worth $10,000 right out of the pack. It's a treasure hunt. So I was a set builder with my son. We'd put together teams and talk about the players, and he's a ball player. But I'm down to just collecting things that are important to me. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm done wasting time with the garbage that's out there. I buy what I want. I don't buy stuff to search for treasure anymore. It's really about buying what's important and building the collection that way.
That's awesome. So cool. Ryan Rezzelle for president. I thought it was you, but it's you. It's this guy.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, what was just to follow up with Ken's? What was for comics? What was your I don't know if I want to say your favorite or most personal or like something. Which one was most sentimental?
So I grew up a huge fan of the G.I. Joe comic and G.I. Joe number 21. I have a first print of Silent Interlude. It's the backstory for Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and some of their upbringing, and I have that graded at a 9.2. The probably second from there, and this has only been lately that I'm digging this one, but I've got the first appearance of Deadpool, and it's a pretty high grade copy.
I used to own that comic. I want to say it's an X-Force comic, if I recall correctly, right?
Yes.
Isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
where he's fighting.
I think is it X-Force 93?
I think he's fighting Cable on the cover, I think of it. I used to have that. I used to be big into collecting comics when I was a kid. I used to sell them at school. I used to have the thing that you had for baseball cards too, where it would tell you what everything was worth. I forget what Beckett guide.
Beckett.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I used to flip them in school for for a couple bucks and stuff.
No, so when I say that I didn't start in sales until I got to like it, that's not really true because I've been bartering, buying and selling, all across the span. I started on eBay in 1999 and it was really kind of the Wild West back then. And truly now as an eBay reseller for some of the things that I do, you have to be a professional business person. You cannot be out there, just wildly swinging. You have to bring a professional game. But, so I really think that yeah, it may sound silly, but being in sales now, I'm a talker. Most people think I'm shy. No. And I used to love garage sales just to try and, come to a price with people. I mean, I didn't price anything that I put out, and some of the little gray-haired ladies would be like, "Hey, you should put prices on this." And I'll be like, "Look, I promise, if I put a price on it, you're going to pay more than if you just bring it up and say how much."
Yeah.
And I was always about bundling, and so like I learned a lot about sales at the garage sale level. I know that might sound silly, but it really just taught me about working with people, and really, I mean, like, sales is all about relationships, and that's something I've had to build through the years in college as a crime scene investigator. I mean, I was in very, awkward, terrible moments of people's lives, and I was there trying to elicit information from them. Like, you have to be a master communicator when you're working in that space. 800 plus homicides across my career. Not all of those were the scene. Sometimes I'd be processing a suspect or a vehicle or something like that, but somebody's dead, and there's a lot of people that are upset about it. So you have to become this master communicator, and you end up, you're selling your concept. Whatever it is you need to get done, that's what you're selling people on, and that's really what I drew. As I got to like it, I was just like, I've been selling people on concepts for years, and I testify in court to these cases, and I would have to sell myself as being, a trustworthy witness that knows what they're talking about. And so, I mean, when I got to like it, it wasn't hard to step into a sales role because I really had been selling different things to different people. It just wasn't a hard good with a price tag where I'd say, "Here you go," when they said I'll take it. But, it's all of that has really helped to feed who I've become today.
That's awesome. Let's talk about those early days just a little bit, because even in your bio, you called it like your war story, right? Early part of your career with the Kansas City Police Department. Talk about that just a little bit, maybe some of the highlights and kind of, what kind of motivated you then?
Well, I have a Master of Forensic Science from George Washington, and that planted so many seeds of things I was excited to try to do as a working professional. And so I know I'd mentioned that one scene, and we'll get to that, the grenade guy scene, where we really kind of turned a corner where we went from just simple drawings to using ArcGIS to grab measurements. But I had a deep interest in forensic anthropology and forensic mapping, photography. Those were probably my big three when I was coming out of school. So anytime I saw an opportunity to learn more or to grow in those spaces, I capitalized on it as best I could. But early on, it was just kind of a run and gun situation where, we were understaffed as a crime scene unit. That's something you're going to hear from every crime scene investigator in every city, everywhere. There's never enough CSIs to go around. And within 6 months of being hired, I was out working homicide scenes on my own. I'd be there with the detectives. They'd be doing their thing, doing a canvas. I'd be on site doing the physical evidence, documentation and recovery. And it's like, man, I'm 24 and a half years old and I'm out working a homicide by myself. What just happened? You're like, wow, this is crazy. So in Kansas City, it was very much trial by fire. I got to see a lot of the things I was excited to see very quickly. In that first 6 months, I was sent to the morgue. I had to take footprints for identification from a young child that had been found decapitated here in Kansas City. That was the Precious Doe case. And, I'll say, I mean, I do think I'm a very good-natured person. If I were to say I get low occasionally, it's not like low, but it's like I get a little emo over some of those cases. When I see something, or I catch something on 48 Hours Investigates, or somebody mentions something I was tied to. I mean, it's impossible to go through those kind of scenes and to do that kind of work without having some emotion. And we used to say, look, we can laugh or we can cry, and we love to laugh. So, I mean, if you were inside of a homicide crime scene, a lot of people would be surprised at the banter and the types of discussions happening, because you're relating to your colleagues, to your coworkers, your family that are in there with you. And when you work that kind of job day in and day out, they truly become your family. And we did a lot of laughing, excuse me, but there was also a lot of challenge, as well, because of the type of work we were doing.
Yeah. Well, I like that, what you said there. You'll either laugh or you cry, right? I mean, I would have to think that emotionally, I mean, you have to get a little bit callous to it, right? Otherwise, it's probably not for you.
I think 100%. I mean, and it's not a callousness. It's more a switch. You knew how and when to turn that switch so you could be the objective fact finder that you needed to be. And really, it was easy to do because you knew the work you were doing was helping to unravel something about a person's death, how a person got robbed, how there was some sexual assault. You were going to find facts that gave peace to the people that were involved with that, because people can live well and recover from being the victim of a crime, but if they don't really understood what happened, then it's hard. And by providing that level of understanding, by going to court and testifying about what we did and helping to bring closure in those cases, that does keep you kind of fulfilled against some of those lower moments. But I mean, to my point about the case with the child that had been decapitated, I mean, there's some types of things that you see you can't unsee, and it will be with you forever. I mean, that's one of those cases that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I've got good things in my life, and I had good things in my life then that always kept me up. I've been married for 20 years, going on a 20-year trip to Hawaii, first time to Hawaii. But, I have a 15-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. I mean, these are the things that keep my wheels turning, because, man, I mean, I live by day so I can live by night. And it really is about being a complete person.
Yeah. I'm so inspired already.
Yeah, I mean,
this is amazing.
How do you what do you think some of the skill sets you had to be able to turn that off when you go home? Like when you're at one of those scenes, and then you got to come home and go to soccer practice or football practice, baseball practice, whatever.
Right.
I mean,
so I think I had shared a little bit about the Real Rhino era, and that's Real REEL, Real movie reel. From about 2006, and we were doing the storage units during this era also, but from about 2006 to 2012, I was going to well over 100 movies per year in the theater. And I used the cinema as a kind of a buffer for me. I went to almost all of them by myself. If there was a tear-jerking moment, I almost always would go to tears. And I came to realize that the movies were my emotional outlet that allowed me to get a lot of the feelings I had inside of me just out, whether it was laughing at a comedy or, shedding a tear. If it was something emotional, I did a lot of movies. And 2009 was the year that my son was born. And I went to 168 movies at the theater that year. And if we hadn't have had a kid, I think it might have got out of control. In fact, for 2010,
out of control.
I was targeting. I wanted to do a movie a day. There's a guy, I think his name's Kevin Murphy, and he was one of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys. And he wrote a book called a Movie a Day: My Life in a Year at the Movies. And I love that. No matter where he was in the world, he traveled with a projector and would do a public performance of some film that he had brought to qualify for attending a movie if he was nowhere near a theater that day. And I remember that's what I was working up towards. I'm going to get to these. I'm going to do a 365-day. We're going to do it. And now, once the boy was born, it was a downhill trip from there. 2010, it was. It was like 50 movies, then 11, like 30. And, I do maybe 4 or 5 movies a year now, but I do watch a lot here at the house with the kids. And I'm enjoying getting to watch a lot of things with them that they hadn't seen, from earlier in my life. But that was really how I balanced it out was through film. It just it really helped out.
Yeah. I want to ask to segue real quick onto the movie thing, since you're such a cinemaphile. I want to ask you the question this way. Give me your top 3 favorite movies, and then I want you to give me 3 movies. If aliens came here and knew nothing about cinema, and you had to pick 3 movies to represent what cinema is, what would those be? Like classic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, this would have been a fair one to cue me up with. I can always land at my favorite movie of all time is Ghostbusters. That played in 1984. I was 8 years old. It was my first memory of a real cinema experience with a couple friends. My mom took us, the popcorn, the whole thing. So, that's always very near the top of the list. I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I would say that maybe Inception falls into that top 3 also.
Interesting.
I just absolutely love that movie, and he's such a creative director. I
would have gone with Memento, but okay.
You did not like Memento?
I said I would have gone with Memento.
I'll tell you, it's interesting. I love Nolan, and when Insomnia came out, I was doing the crime scene overnight. There's some days I didn't sleep for a day or two. I really related to Al Pacino, minus the corruption and all that. But I mean, I kind of related to that concept of insomnia, not being able to sleep. Yeah. But the third in the top three could be, it's a dealer's choice. I mean, Apollo 13 comes to mind. I'm a big Tom Hanks fan.
good.
Love Charlie Wilson's War. I love the dynamic between him and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Julia Roberts in that. I mean, really just as far as Aliens Landing, though, since we're gonna see it through here, Russ. You brought it up, so we're gonna see it through. As far as Aliens Landing, I think The Godfather, Casablanca,
Good.
and
Sandlot.
Sandlot.
you know what? I'm going with it. I'm
other
in.
guys.
I'd be in on
With
it. We watched The Sandlot like 5-6 times a summer. I mean, don't get me wrong. but
Sandlot, we're showing aliens. Our lives are on
here's
the
thing.
line
Okay,
for
okay.
this, Will.
Can I tell you what my gut was? The Wizard of Oz. My gut was The Wizard of Oz.
Also good.
yeah.
So,
go ahead.
my opinion, just a very opinion, is any list that doesn't have Pulp Fiction in the top is sacrilegious.
So, I mean, again, Russ, I mean, if you'd have given me time on this, I mean, because Quentin Tarantino is a stunner. I mean,
yeah.
you know, and like, you know, you start talking about like when Tony Scott was directing, what was it? True Romance. He directed True Romance. Quentin Tarantino wrote it. Tony Scott directed. Tony Scott, amazing director. Denzel, amazing. I mean, like, you got me excited about this now, man. I might have to go to the movies tonight.
Well, now
but-
I'm like, we didn't even get Kubrick involved in any of these movies. Like, there's so many I'd
They
love to
just-
talk to you
they-
about this separate time.
They
'cause I could
just
take
added The Shining to HBO Max, and I'm midway through it. Just such a classic
so
movie.
great.
Absolutely.
So great.
Yeah.
Did you
Sorry
see that
about
they're
that.
going to have Wizard of Oz in the Sphere in Vegas?
no.
Yes.
Like OG?
Yes. Yeah. Like, that would be amazing.
Hey, if it's going down during Hexagon Live, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you guys are there, I'm there. Let's go.
Yeah.
'Cause
I'm gonna
I
be
would
there.
absolutely do that.
Absolutely.
100%.
All right.
Awesome.
Have you ever seen the Wizard of Oz version? When we were little, my mom had this one that we got from like a garage sale, and it was like an extended cut, and they like did like the jitterbug or something. Like it had these extra weird scenes in it. Like it had like, I want to say it was like an extra 30 minutes to the movie.
Really?
Is this the bare naked ladies version?
Yes, it's the B&L version of the Wizard of Oz.
Hey, as an eBay reseller, I can almost promise you, if you had that version still, it's probably very collectible.
I'm sure it's long gone.
That's awesome.
Bootleg.
So funny. Well, let's get a little technical anyways. What do you think? Should we?
Sure.
We should.
Yes.
Talk about, so when did scanning become part of your CSI workflow, I guess, and how did that change things?
Well, I mentioned the grenade guy scene, and I better cover that for a moment, just kind of because that was where I really took a left turn towards, facing this forward. We had been drawing using roll-a-wheels or roll-a-tapes, the wheel rolling measuring devices, which are the least accurate devices in the history of measuring devices, in my opinion. We even tried to validate them at one time, and they measure differently if you roll them on different surfaces. So we were using those. We were using tape measures. We were crossing tape measures over to triangulate and, just all sorts of things that weren't really sound measurement methods. But they were really what had been used since around the year, 1900 to measure crime scenes. I mean, people were using tape measures and telling you what the distance was, and that was the gospel at that point. And that's one of the hard parts about these hand-recorded measurement methods is whatever you see on the tape and whatever you write on the page becomes the gospel for that evidence. That was the distance. That was where it was located. Well, at the grenade guy, we had a guy that was, police were called because he was abusing his girlfriend. They get there and they start having a conversation. Well, he says, "Listen, I have a grenade and I'm gonna blow us all up." And so he gets backed into this courtyard. There was this big open area of houses that surrounded it, a courtyard. It was a planned neighborhood, so you know how they've got all those wavy roads or windy roads and cul-de-sacs and all that. So he's backed into this massive courtyard, probably 200 feet from any of the homes. They even evacuated the homes because he was out in the middle of this thing, said he had a grenade. Nobody saw the grenade, but you take somebody seriously in police world if they say they have a grenade. So they called in the tactical team. And after they tried Operation Bud Light, which is where you say, "Hey, man, do you want a beer?" You put the beer out just far enough so if he comes out, he can give, tase him. Yeah, that didn't work. So this guy had become agitated and basically cocked his arm back like he was going to throw the grenade at one of the officers, and one of the tactical snipers shot him. He goes down and there's no boom, and there was some concern around that. And we're over at the Lowe's Home Improvement Center. We had set up a command post there. This is just a couple blocks away from where this was going down. And our job, now that this guy's been shot, our job begins. We are now working this as an officer-involved shooting, and we're doing an inventory of every police officer, tactical officer, everybody that was around, anybody that had line of sight on this guy when this shooting occurred. We are inventorying their weapons to make sure, hey, does this person have all their ammunition? So we're going through that. All of a sudden, we hear over the air, "Oh no!" And then, like 2 seconds later, muffled boom in the distance, and we're like, "I think they found the grenade."
Easy. Oh my God.
So they had sent the bomb robot out and rolled them over. Now we get sent over to the scene now because now there's a problem there that we have to address, and there was anyway, but now it's a bigger problem. And so the field commander sends us out, and we go out and start marking evidence. We got flags. We ended up using over 1,000 flags to mark independent body parts. He was distributed pretty widely across this area, and so field commander sent us out. Well, he was not talking to the bomb scene commander, so I'm placing flags out all over this field. And all of a sudden, I see something moving out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and it's two guys in bomb suits walking towards me. And I look down, and I'm like, I'm not wearing a bomb suit. I hightailed it out of there. Nobody had checked the guy for secondary devices. He could have had other grenades, and we're out there working around him. So it was a little snafu in the moment.
Wow.
Well, the real challenge for us at this scene, because of how just awkwardly shaped this neighborhood was going to be to measure and draw it. We would draw everything that we measured in a program called Visio. Before I don't remember who it was owned by, but Microsoft bought it. It really was a wonderful program for just doing simple scale drawings. I mean, it's built with a scale right in there, and so we would do that. But we all stood there looking at the scene like, how are we going to do this? Well, we had a guy that was always chasing down. He was looking up addresses on ArcGIS. We had the interface where you could get to the address records, the ownership records, and things like that. And he goes, I think we can use this to measure this scene. So he printed out a scale version of the neighborhood plat, and we started putting our evidence on there. And we did still use tape measures, cloth tapes, whatever we had, but we were triangulating against fixed points in that drawing. And I was really intrigued. It really kind of opened my eyes to some of the things we could do electronically. So I think that was 2003 or 2004. And we started looking at other solutions. That was 2003. In 2004, we were going to solve all our problems by getting a total station. So we're a crime scene unit. We work about 60% of our scenes indoors, dead people inside. And everyone, like, if you know any really great total station operators, I'm probably talking to 3 of them right now, they will tell you I can use a total station anywhere. I can indoors, outdoors, upstairs, downstairs, I can shoot it. And so we get this total station, and they expected us to work 3-level homicides, hoarder houses, and I'm like, this is not the right tool. And we did end up using it for our outdoor scenes. We ultimately ended up we gave it to our traffic unit, and they integrated it. They were all total station users at that point. But around that time, we also started looking at 3D scanning. And the year was, I think, 2007, when Tony Grissom, he was the founder of the public safety group here at Leica Geosystems. He stopped by. He was doing a cross-country tour with his brother. His brother was a police officer at one point. So they kind of went on the road together, and they were just talking shop and showing people at this point the Scan Station 2. It might have even been the Scan Station 1. But
I remember that.
I remember how excited I was at what it looked like. But, man, I was like, there is a lot of work to get in there. You have got, I mean, like, you've got a power source, you got a computer, you're setting stuff up. I mean, it looked like you set up a mobile office when you set that thing up.
Yep.
It's just a wild, wild ride. So, smash cut to 2008, I get recruited to go over to the Johnson County side. The laboratory director that I had worked for had gone over there, and he had asked if I would come over and run the crime scene unit. I said, yes, let's do that. I loved Kansas City. It was a great place to work for 8 years and get a lot of experience. I would say that 80 to 85% of my total cases worked were in the 8 years in Kansas City. And then maybe 15 to 20% were the total cases worked were in Johnson County. We had access to more money, more resources. We were better staffed. There was just a lot of differences across the state line. And so I get pulled over to Johnson County. There's a trial going on. We had an officer-involved shooting where 2 officers shot and injured non-fatally a woman who had been standing on her bed with a knife when she attacked these officers. They shot, and she was injured. Well, she was taken to trial, and there were 3 mistrials, and it might have been a mistrial, a hung jury, and then a mistrial. But there was all sorts of problems with trying to get a conviction on this woman for the assault on the officers. So she was ultimately exonerated of those charges. That when the third case happened, I think the third one was a hung jury. I think it was maybe hung jury, mistrial, hung jury. And by that time, the judge said, "Ma'am, we will not be bringing you back to hear any more against you. You are free of these charges." And she went on her way. Well, because she was shot by the police, she immediately sued the police department. She was not convicted of assault on the officer. So she ultimately got a payout of like $750,000. Now, during the trial, and one of the things that was confounding for the jury was the CSIs that had worked this scene. Now, they worked it before I got there. I had just gotten to the county and I was consulting with the district attorneys during this case. But they had used hand recording measurements. They were using zero-edge protractors to measure trajectories and stringing things and all sorts of very reliable methods that we've been using for years. I was taught those exact methods in the year 2001 at Kansas City's crime scene school, when you go through this academy of just learning all of the things that you need to know about being a crime scene investigator. And I was taught how to hand measure and how to draw and how to create scale drawings and all these things. The guy that taught me how to draw a crime scene was the defense expert who was testifying that hand recorded measurements were fallible and should not be admitted in this case.
Oh, geez.
He knew the weakness of it.
He did.
Wow.
He did. Now, like when the district attorney was like, "Is he right?" And I was like, "Well, he's right-ish." Yeah. I mean, look, I can measure something and I know that it's reliable. And I think that if you were to look at what I did versus what was there, you would agree that, yes, that's an fair and accurate representation of what was there. Not everybody would create that. So ultimately that created that doubt. And the sheriff came to me. He said, "Ryan, do you think that we can solve this problem of measuring things for less than $750,000? I said, "Sheriff, we got you." So, I had, of course, I still knew Tony Grissom at that point. We evaluated just about every piece of equipment that was available. I ran a 30-day trial of the Sphere on VR, if you guys remember that. It was a photogrammetry system. It was, fixed heights. And you would import it into a program and you could just click on two things. It was very early adoption of photogrammetry, and there were some challenges with it. If you had any incline, unless you were shooting on completely level ground, the slope that was in your scenes added error that you just couldn't contend with. But it was a really neat system. It took really high resolution images, but it wasn't the answer for us. Tony had come back out at one point and he had showed us the scan station too. Well, like 2 months later, when we're shopping for something now, he said, "I'm sending you a scanner." He knew me well enough that he trusted me, sent it out. He sent me a C10. Ooh. And if he had sent anything other that, like if we were still SS2 days, I don't think I'd have been in the game. He sent me a C10. We had it for 2 weeks. The third day we had it, we caught a homicide. And I say that because in Johnson County, remember, most of my cases were in the Kansas City side. Yeah. So for us to have a scanner for 2 weeks and to actually catch a homicide was a big deal. We mapped that scene using our traditional methods. We did some hand recording measurements, and then we also had 2 total stations going with Shawnee PD. That was the agency that we were serving in this instance. We also had the scanner. We did 5 scans that took a total of about an hour, and the work product we got from it was stunning. I mean, just kind of put it in the memo, just a picture of the scene and slide it across the desk. That really changed the game, and from that point forward, it was on. Now, an interesting aside, in the state of Kansas, the KBI was also shopping. That's Kansas Bureau of Investigation. They were also shopping for a scanner. And their director at that time, he knew that we were about to buy one. And so he rushed their PO so that he could say that they were the first in the state of Kansas to have the scanner. Our sheriff didn't love that, but we all got along. There was a good number of Leica operators in Kansas between the KBI, between what we were doing at Johnson County Sheriff's Office. And we created a little network that's really even grown to this day. I mean, there's a fantastic group of users around here, but those early days, that officer involved shooting where it got thrown out. I mean, it was the perfect alignment of things to happen to make happen what did, that we got into scanning. And I started down this path, and we got that scanner in my second year into Johnson County, and I left at the end of my 8th. And really, from that point forward, I just fell in love with it. I mean, the things that you could do, if you talk to a lot of crime scene investigators, they'll tell you, well, our protocol for scanning is to use it on homicides, life-threatening shootings, vehicular fatalities, or officer-involved shootings. And I'm saying there are so many scenes where there is a benefit to having the context that comes with those 3D, that reality capture. It brings so much to any investigation. And so people right now are caught up on just saying, oh, it's for homicides and officer involves. Man, they are so fast, so tactical. It really is an everyday kind of tool that we're finding. And this is something for the last 9 years. Before I stepped into the sales manager role that I'm in now, I ran the public safety group. And that was our message to people, that this is a tool for everyday work. It's not something for special occasions. It's something for really everyday work. And it will truly accentuate the product.
Especially something like an RTC. I mean, it just scans so fast and so small.
Oh, yeah.
So easily deployable.
Well,
invasive, right, to your process.
I end up having my instrument of the moment. I fall in love with usually one thing at a time. And I used to say that you could pry my C10 from my cold dead hands. And then I said you could pry the RTC from my cold dead hand. Because that is, I tell you, just its speed, its tactical maneuverability, what it's doing in the background for you, 100%. Absolutely, positively.
Ryan, are you having to integrate other technologies to work with your scan data? Like UAV.
Oh, sure.
Stuff like that. Because I know some of your scenes can be, massively drawn out, and so you can only cover so much with the scanner. So are you guys flying in the drone and integrating all that together?
Sure. Now, I mean, we've got the Leica UAV, the BLK to fly, but that's really, it's a unique instrument. And when we talk about UAVs, I'm very quick to tell people, hey, that's not us. Like, we're not flying normal UAV missions. But, in 2020, it was a COVID year. I'm sure you guys remember. We did not travel as much that year as we did in previous years. And so I had been introduced to Infinity, Leica Infinity, as a UAV processing tool. And so I won't name any of the other manufacturers that we were up against in some of these situations, but in every situation, Infinity outperformed anything that anybody brought to the table. And the one area that it really excelled, that was really a game changer for us, were dusk and dawn pictures. When the light was failing, Infinity was able to discern details to put those into orthotiffs or into point clouds when other softwares couldn't. And we just made a major push for it in the year 2020. Now, for me personally, one of the biggest scenes that I had scanned was the Jewish Community Center shooting, the attack at the Jewish Community Center shooting, where a neo-Nazi showed up and he shot 4 people on site, killed 2 there at the site. 1 was left on scene, 1 was transported. He drove to another location. It was a Jewish community center, Jewish retirement home called the Village Shalom, and he shot and killed somebody else there. It's often pointed out how ironic it is that not a single person that he shot and killed that day was Jewish. It doesn't matter. I mean, when people point that out, I'm like, the guy's a monster. It doesn't matter who he killed. He sought to do bad, and that's all that matters. So, we get called out there, and ultimately across about a 31-hour span, I think I did 33 scans. It's either 33 scans in 31 hours or 31 scans in 33 hours. I don't remember anymore. What do we call it? Interchangeable. But so we're out there, and we have all the evidence marked, and I had done probably 4 or 5 scans at this point when tornadic storms were on approach. And so when you're at a crime scene, and this was a completely outdoor crime scene. I mean, we had broken glass, we had trajectory, cartridge cases, we had all sorts of challenges. And these tornadic storms are on approach. So the best way to really visualize everything is just to get some aerial photos. And because of the tornadic storms, now this is, I think it was 2013, 14, or 15. There were some big cases in there. It was in one of those years, but maybe it was 2014, now that I'm remembering. 690, the police helicopter for Kansas City couldn't get up overhead. KHP couldn't get their birds in the air. The weather was too bad. It was too bad for a manned helicopter to fly anymore. I was begging for anybody to bring me a UAV. I mean, this was back, this is 10 years ago. I mean, the UAVs were different. They were special in 2014. I mean, not everybody had them.
No, you were like Phantom 2 at that point, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you didn't even have like the ability to see on your controller even back then, like the vision, right?
So we didn't get one. We didn't get a bird up fortunately, and that ultimately led to my department getting into UAVs, because they're like, we got to have something, so if this ever happens again, we don't have that happen. I mean, we had multiple people shot and killed, and we didn't have the mechanism we needed to document something. That didn't sit well with anybody. The only thing that saved us is that this happened adjacent to the Sprint World headquarters, or I think it was the World headquarters at the time. Now it's T-Mobile or whatever it is, but there was a 5-level parking garage directly adjacent to where the shooting had occurred, and we were able to get up high enough that we were able to see everything. That, and the fact that our evidence cones were out, and we used 4-sided markers so that wherever the scanner was, it was able to visualize one of the numbers. And in those first 4 or 5 scans, in those elevated photos, we were able to capture the scene well enough that it was documented. You know, we had documented everything in situ. And then in about the 15 minutes before the torrential downpour, we went sprinting around, collecting evidence, bagging it, putting it in things to protect it. Because if we had let it go through to that, you know, the end of that, like it would have been gone. But that's really, I think, where, for me, where I was introduced into the value of UAV. This is a device I can keep in my van and get up overhead.
Oh yeah.
100%. The ability to push into ortho tips, to have, a fully formed background image, that you can, if you want, you can just trace on it. I mean, there's so much value in what you get from those UAVs. But, even beyond that, when I was working at that time, we would often have to bring total station data into our scans. We would be out at a scene. We worked at the service of 19 different agencies in Johnson County. And if that agency wanted to use their total station, or like I mentioned in the Shawnee, Kansas homicide scene I mentioned, they had two total stations going. So we had to be able to integrate total stations with scanning. We had to integrate UAV. And sometimes they didn't mesh together. We would use them independently and tell different parts of the story with whatever made the most sense for trying to convey the meaning of what was at that scene.
Mm-hmm. Were you also supporting other entities in law enforcement with the UAVs? I bring it up. I have a friend in the business, and he's talked about supporting SWAT, as just a pilot, not sitting right next to the sergeant. He's directing him, but he's literally flying this, and it's all it's nighttime, it's night vision. The bad guys in the backyard, all the SWAT team is lined up in the alley. He's flying the drone over, and the sergeant's telling him hold, don't. So, but every SWAT team member on the ground, they're doing a Zoom call, and they're all watching a flight video, sitting in the alley waiting for the go.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, we have seen a major influx of departments that are staffing full-time UAV units. In fact,
yeah.
Well, and one of the things that we're seeing, a number of departments are starting their own scan team. And you're here to laser scan, whether it's a homicide crime scene, a fatality. If I need this school scan from school safety perspective, if I want to scan City Hall, so if there's ever an incident there, our tactical operators have that. We had scanned our courthouse and provided that to our deputies. They trained on that data. I mean, there is a major need, and really it's happening. It's happening in real time, where departments are building these teams to answer these questions, and it's wonderful. I mean, this is really kind of a renaissance for this era. I mean, I would be willing to say at this point that if you're a police agency and you don't know what a UAV is, if you're not familiar with laser scanning, reality capture, or even just using GNSS or a total station, I mean, there is a kind of steps in the evolution of your own knowledge. A lot of times it starts with GNSS, total stations, maybe it goes up to UAV, maybe then it's reality capture, but so many people know it. Everybody wants it. I mean, from a sales standpoint now, when I first started, people would be like, well, that city's only got 20,000 people. They probably only have about 50 officers. No, there is nobody off the table when it comes to reality capture now. Everybody wants a part of this. Everybody wants to be doing what some of the big dogs are doing, what some of the smaller dogs are doing, but everybody wants to be in that arena. Yeah. And I don't blame them. Your ability to tell a story with evidence, with reality capture, I mean, we would be doing discovery. So when you have a criminal case, when you have a defendant named, their attorney is privy to a discovery file, and that's every single piece of information that the prosecution is aware of. They provide it to the defense attorney so they can review it. Well, laser scanning was kind of an interesting little part of that because even our attorneys didn't really understand it. So we often did a briefing on what we had done with each case. And because the defense had to get that same information, they would often schedule it where they would just bring everybody in. It was kind of like an informal hearing where we would present what we did with the scan data. We would give them an opportunity to interrogate it with us at the controls, and we would give them an opportunity to tell us what exhibits will you need for trial. I bet half the time that we would have a defense attorney in there with their client, like we'd hear something like, yeah, they really scienced the hell out of this thing. Like, I think we ought to plea out. And it was like, okay, I mean, that's fine. Awesome. We could do that too. I mean, it was really an exciting period of time when like, you'd be sitting there showing people, I mean, like, I can imagine some defendants sitting there like, that's not where I was. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that, but it's just, it really has revolutionized our ability to take it to the next level. But it's also the biggest risk in the industry is that it's everywhere. A laser scanner gives you the ability to scan a trajectory rod. A trajectory rod is used to measure into infinite space the trajectory upon which a bullet or projectile was traveling while it was traveling through air. Simply putting a rod in a hole, it's not that easy. There are edge effects that give you indication that it was the round was coming more from this side than this side, or just different aspects of that damage profile that may mean that just putting it through this hole and this hole in a straight line isn't right, that it actually was favoring the left or the right, just looking at the shoring along the edge of the hole, just all sorts of different things that are going to give you different context. So if all you do is put a rod through the hole and scan it, you're in deep risk of just capturing a piece of information that is patently false. You have to know how to do the shooting reconstruction before you become a laser scanner for shooting reconstruction. Because you have to know how to place those rods, where to put the different equipment that when you scan it, it tells the story. So that's the biggest risk of the moment, is that everybody is now empowered to capture things in vivid 3D detail. Well, if it's not right and we don't have the ability to check the work, that's where it becomes troubling. And so I think it's wonderful that we're proliferating this, but there's a big difference in the world of evidence. So if I go out and scan a site and I want to put that scan into evidence in court, typically there's a challenge process where, at Leica in 2012, 2013, maybe 14, we got a Daubert ruling in our favor in the state of New Mexico. It was a federal ruling. We got the same ruling at the state level, but it meant that the Daubert ruling basically stated that Leica Geosystems 3D laser scanners and their associated software have met the standard for scientific admissibility in a courtroom. And so we met that standard. And when I would go to court, I would reference that case. And I would say, hey, we have a Daubert ruling. And so there'd be no challenge. On the other hand, if I go and do scans, or if I take a series of photos with some unlicensed program and create a photogrammetry model from those images, there's nothing telling me if my spacing or size, the 3D space is to scale. But if I present it and say that is a fair and accurate representation, I can then testify to that as an image. Like I would hold up a picture and say, this is a fair and accurate representation. I can't, or I shouldn't be talking about specific distances or what the space in that area means. But I can say, here's a shirt, here's some blood, this is where the guy was located. But I shouldn't be saying, based on this model, the trajectory was 34 degrees, east to west, because you don't know if that's accurate. So that's where some of the risk of this is that we're moving almost faster than protocols can keep up with. In 2016, I was named inaugural member of the NIST OSAC. You sit on that one for a while. OSAC. That's the Organization of Scientific Area Committees. It was a fun name to say then. It's still fun now.
It is.
And there were 16 of us. We assembled at the Grand Resort in Phoenix area for our first meeting in 2016. And our goal across time was to develop protocols for just about everything that pertains to CSI. I wrapped up my time with that group this past fall. And as there was a subgroup that was working on forensic metrology. And so everybody's thinking about this right now. We know, especially those that are at the fringe of the workspace in the industry, we know that we have to do something to make sure that there are processes and protocols in place so that people aren't misusing this equipment also, that they're not overstepping their abilities and the things that they should be able to land at as conclusions. And that's probably the hardest part of this, is that it really does feel kind of like Pandora's box has been opened, for good and for bad. I mean, like there's new reality capture devices coming out about every other week, just across the board. It's exciting to see what's happening. It's exciting to see the software develop in the directions it is. But really, there's a lot of risk also. I mean, I see some of that gear being misused at times just because the operators, they don't know enough about it. They're undertrained. They don't stay up on it. They're not learning about what's happening. I mean, part of the reason that I work for Leica is because across those 6 years as a 3D scanner for the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, I went to 3 hexagons. I was writing papers about it. I was researching about it. I was doing all the things that I needed to do as a working professional to be able to go to court and speak about the technology I used at crime scenes in an educated way. I mean, it's the right thing to do. And it was how we put ours into play. And I those that haven't done that, those that are behind that curve, it's not always their fault. They're just using what they're given at times. They're doing the best they can. As I mentioned earlier, like most CSI groups are understaffed. Same with traffic groups. All these folks, they're doing way more with less. They're doing the best they can. And so one of my goals across the 9 years that I managed our public safety group was really just to try and help anybody I could establish protocols, participate in the industry. I was in that NIST OSAC group, developing protocols and standards, and just being a part of that to make sure that people are having that conversation.
Yeah. So it's obvious we need to have a Ryan Rezzelle part 2 podcast.
Yes.
We're hardly scratching the surface of a lot of the things I want to talk about.
I wanted to ask a question real quick, if that's okay. Just when you
For-
mentioned about scanning for CSI from Leica, does Leica have a separate suite that they have that's kind of more guided and not so geospatial? You know what I mean? Like kind of built towards survey or surveyors.
We have the Map 360 product. That's the microsurvey. I'm sure everybody's familiar with microsurvey. They have the Field Genius and a variety of different products. So they had the it was called Map Scenes for years, and now it's called Map 360, and that is our forensic software suite. So we can go in there and do the blood stain pattern analysis. We can calculate area of origins. We can calculate stopping distances and crush depths in cars and trajectories, and then we can export elements of those scenes and bring it right into an LGSX file and merge the 3D modeling and analysis that's done in the Map 360 and demonstrated in 3D space in the LGSX file. So it's a really awesome aspect.
It's like 3DR, but for bodies, for crime. Will you show me that sometime? It sounds super cool.
Absolutely. I know that we've got like the video. I sent you guys those photos. I didn't know if there would be any place to show any of those. But again, if you do want to do this again sometime and ask me to present on any of the things that I've done or the types of things I've talked about, I mean, look, I think you can tell, like, I'm very passionate about this. I'm passionate about it, whether this is on my shirt or not, because I did this as a working professional for 6 years and then 16 years total as a CSI. So, like, I love to talk about it. I love to talk about it within the context of being from Leica. But I really think it's important information for everybody, regardless of what you're using, because there's great risk that, people are going to take missteps that they don't even see coming. It's like stepping off the cliff you don't know is there. And, that's just always been one of my goals. There's a lot of great people, around the country. I mean, the the original formation of that group involved 2 other guys, really 3, like Troy Wilson, he was with the Texas Rangers, Neil Zielinski with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and Mike Haig, who was at that time with the Albuquerque, New Mexico Police Department. And they were early adopters as I was. They were all kind of customers of Tony Grissom's, and we became early friends. And from like 2010 on, we were all just kind of jamming back and forth. Mike and his father, Luke Haig. Luke is considered one of the kind of pioneers of firearms identification as a science, and Mike took that over. Mike was the head of the forensic identification, firearms identification unit at Albuquerque when he left. I might be doing him a disservice. He might have been a little better than that, but they ran the recreation of the JFK shooting for the frontline program, or the I forget what it was, but the one that was released in 2013 for the 50th anniversary. And you can see a lot of the data that they had captured. They had scanned from the crow's nest up there. They had scanned from the ground. And just to see that reconstruction and to see those guys on that program talking about it was just really exciting. But there were some good people that have been doing this for a long time, and I think even today, those people I mentioned, there's others, Dave DeLue out of Ocean County, New Jersey. I mean, they were trendsetters. But all of these people, DeLue was one that went on. He actually might be the sergeant over their drone unit. If we should talk offline, I can probably connect with you guys with him. You can chat him up too. But these guys are all still very positive influences within this community for good. They want to see people do right. They want to see them have equipment that's suited for what they do. Mm-hmm. And my passion for this isn't about the shirt I'm wearing. I am very passionate about this shirt, no doubt. Yeah. But it's truly for this industry and the work that's being done in it.
Yeah,
really cool.
The best of both worlds. You're working for a great company like Leica, but you're also able to still dabble in what you're also really passionate about on the CSI side. So that's pretty exciting.
Ken, it would be kind of cool if we could find some time at Hexagon where you can quote unquote murder me, and then Ryan could walk us through how to do like a crime scene.
I'm in.
Yeah, let's do
I'm
it.
Would that
100%.
be considered
Let's do
a
that.
safety video or no?
What? Say again?
I said, would that be considered a safety video, Russ? Or no? Oh my gosh. There's so much more we can get into, Ryan. I want to be respectful of your time. I've got a 5:30 flight in the morning, so let's start to wrap this up if you don't mind.
No. Understand. I'm just kind of glancing at the sheet, and I'm just making sure that there isn't any. I know I shared with you guys the growth that we experienced at Leica from that 2018 to 2024 span, and I do think that I'm very thankful that I was given the opportunity that I was here. We assembled a great team. I mean, the team that disbanded as the public safety group and scattered to different roles within the organization in 2024, everybody was just a high flying operator from that space. And honestly, like that growth was really driven by that team. We assembled just an A list of folks that were working in this space. And that's really what drove it. I kind of like the guys I mentioned that were early adopters and were a part of, just being my colleagues, helped shape who I was, and we were all helping to shape what was going on. I think as long as there are people that are out there working for good, I think we're heading in the right direction. I think that there will be tools that are released that aren't right for the space that people will try, will figure this stuff out. But at the end of the day, I can't speak highly enough for, the team that I was given the chance to work with across those 9 years. And then even now, it's funny. I'm thankful now for my building or my, construction background with my father. I mean, he was just a GC. He was doing, mostly local work. It wasn't major projects, but I learned about working on a construction site. And, here I am now. I'm managing a bunch of folks that are selling to the building construction community. So I mean, I really think that the sum total of who we are in the past helped drive who we are in the future, and I'm thankful for my past, and I look forward to the future.
That's awesome.
So well said.
Definitely.
What else? You got anything else? Like I said, there's going to be a part 2.
Oh, I've got like 1,000 more questions.
Yes, I do too.
And we haven't even got into data management yet.
I know.
I would like to ask one question, since you mentioned it before, about Infinity, in case anyone out there is listening that has Infinity, such as myself, that did not know it did aerial photogrammetry. Is that a separate thing you have to buy, or does that come with a standard Infinity license, or do you not want to?
I'll have to look. Okay. And the reason I say that is, I am managing only reality capture now. It's been 6 full months since I've been on the S&E side of our product line, and even with that said, I mean, we actually dabbled quite successfully in pushing GS18s out to the world. The GS18i was one of my favorite instruments. When I mentioned that instrument love affair, the GS18i had about 6 to 8 months of that. And you used Infinity, the image processing engine in Infinity, to process the images from the GS18i over to orthotiffs or point clouds. Excuse me. And so, I've been a little bit out of it, but I do remember it's not the base module. There is an images from point clouds module. I just
Okay.
couldn't tell you what the cost is, what the
Sure.
part number is. That may have changed in the last year, but there absolutely is an images from point clouds. Now there are two different imaging modules, and you need one but not the other. So, we can hook up at some point. I mean, if I were to pull up the price books and things like that, I'd be able to get into it, easy peasy, but I don't know the answer offhand, but
Yeah, no, I didn't need I was just wondering if it was a standard or if it was a separate model.
I have
So it
no
sounds like
doubt that for the GEOHOLICS, we can get you a demo license and have you trying this by week's end. I mean, this
promo
is
code
doubt.
Rhino for 50% off.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. What else? Anything else? You got anything else, Russ?
I have so many, but I don't want to hold
Well, I
everyone
know,
up.
I know.
No, I would definitely.
I gotcha.
We got to catch up
gotcha.
at Hexagon. Will you
I'm so
please
excited.
crime scene scan me, please? That's
Absolutely.
We'll like,
You
we'll
got
like
it.
bucket list level stuff for me.
You have got it. And truthfully, I will be, but if you want me back another time, like we can do a part 2, we can structure it a little more effectively. I mean, I'm not a short-winded person. When I get into the kind of story mode, I mean, the story takes what the story takes. And, I mean,
No, the stories
They're
are
good
amazing.
stories, though.
we've really
Well,
not, we've not really scratched this. I mean, there's just, I mean, I joke at times that I feel like I've led a Forrest Gumpian life. And I don't know how else to say it. I mean, like the people I know, the places I've gone. I mean, when I was a crime scene investigator, we went places that nobody else went. I mean, guy jumps off the Liberty Memorial. Well, we're up at the top of the Liberty Memorial trying to figure out what happened. I mean, anybody
that's
can go up
crazy.
there, but I mean, to be up there in the night, rooftops of high rises, just train yard. I mean, just abandoned places, doing several square mile wooded searches with canine cadaver dogs. And, we used to use GPS to document whatever we had searched. I mean, like just so many things that were so, it was intriguing. And what I'll tell you is like, that's part of what I love about being at Leica is that, especially now that I'm working with, BC plant survey, as well as public safety, man, like I go a lot of places. I see a lot of things. Like we were at Fort Leonard Wood for the Seaburn conference a couple years ago, and they were like, we're trying to market. They've got this base at Fort Leonard Wood. It's a simulated base like you would have, in country in the Middle East, somewhere like that. And they have a tunnel system leading into it. And so they put their ingress detection team into the base, and they have sound detection, vibration detection. And so they send people up these tunnels. And they try and figure out how close can they get before they're detected. So the guy from Fort Leonard Wood was like, "Man, we'd love to have a scan of that tunnel." And I was like, "Let's go."
All right.
So we rolled out, and it was a very small tunnel. I was not the guy in the tunnel. It was it was Darrell Whitfield, a wonderful human being, but he's definitely a size smaller than me. And he kind of was like a tunnel rat in there with that thing. Just set it down, back out. We'd do the scan. And it looks really cool. So I mean, like just even things like that. Being here at Leica,
That's awesome.
It's truly, look, reality capture is such a thing right now. You all know how important that surveying is to our world. Going back as far as measuring was being had, and so the fact that I am here doing this now and I'm able to carry that out to people and be in places and have these experiences, it really is a wonderful opportunity. I'm very thankful. For the last 9+ years, and I look forward to more. I mean, this is a blast. We're having a great time, and
awesome.
If we don't use the things that we experienced in our lives to help shape what we do next, I mean, that's one of the reasons why that crime scene era was so important to me. Why I do like telling the stories. I love relating things to people that they haven't experienced yet in some way, so it can get them excited about it too.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't have that era, you wouldn't be where you are now in the industry. So everything happens for a reason, right?
That's
Right.
right.
True.
That's right.
Very true.
I went to Maryland. I had started in the radio, television, and film program. Big surprise with some of the discussions we've had tonight. And they disbanded it at the end of my freshman year. And so I was ushered into the School of Journalism, which was a written journalism program, not a media format or video, whatnot. And so I quickly pivoted to criminal justice, and that's where I took that Criminal Justice 320 with Tom Moriello. Like somebody I look back on with great reverence, that he planted the seeds of forensic science in my brain. And I don't know, maybe I'd have ended up somewhere near, but that class that I took for him, he had his master's degree from George Washington, and that's the program I went into. And each week of his class was one of the courses that he had taken there. And I had a blast in that class, and it just translated perfectly to what I wanted to do in the real world.
Did you? At first, I thought you said Tom Morello. I was like, what did you
that's,
say?
Rage Against the Machine?
Yeah. I was like, did you said you went to school with Tom Morello?
So I'll tell you this: his name's Tom Moriello. And but here's a great story about him. So he's from Boston. Okay. And when it comes to classifying fingerprints, there are a number of different bits in a fingerprint that have different names. And one of them is a bifurcation, or it's also known as a forking ridge. And so we're all sitting there taking notes, and he's like, yeah, this is a bifurcation or a fucking ridge. And we're like, whoa. He's like, hey, it's the accent. Just don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, God. So that was always one of his big, icebreaker jokes with the class. But he was a great guy. I ran into him at the 2013 American Academy of Forensic Science, and it was, it was really nice to see him. But, that is one of the other things about this industry is like, once you know people, you know them forever. And it's like the reality capture. It's the geospatial industry. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, there's great people working every which way but loose. We were talking about Geo Week before the call started, and how like when I went to my first Geo Week this year, and they were like, or it was last year, but they were like, hey, listen, we're really not. These are customers, but everybody knows everybody here. We're really here to just shake hands, say hi, show some things if they want to see. But it felt more like, this great opportunity to bring a ton of people together that all have something in common, but don't often have a reason to be together. And it did. That was a great conference. I look forward to it this coming year. And, just the opportunity to see folks, out in the real world. Of course, Will was at the Arizona Survey Conference last week. I was honored to see him up on stage and delivering that keynote address was, superb. And just, God, it's just a great time being out there.
It is.
Yeah, I didn't even know Ryan was going to be on the show. I was literally just walking around, thanking all the vendors for showing up. And
I didn't know you were associated with the show until I went to the webpage today, and I was like, oh, right.
It all makes sense
now.
now.
That was great, though. No, Ryan was great. Like I said, I was just, walked by as a surveyor, just interested in some scanning stuff. And, man, we were there for probably an hour and he's showing me everything that he's got, and he explains it in a real world perspective, right? So yeah.
Well, and I do want to mention one thing, because Will, you could probably tell him, but you saw me with that pull rod on my back, right?
Yes.
So I wore when I go to trade shows now. So my romance of the moment is with the BLK Arc. And the backpack version of the BLK Arc, I am in love with that thing.
That's how I met you.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, Geo Week.
Yes.
You put the Arc on me.
Yes. And, at that point at Geo Week, I hadn't yet had an instrument. We didn't have the demo units in the teams yet. And so I don't think I got mine until January or February. And then once I got it, I think I looked at it for 2 weeks, kind of like, what do I do with this? It's awesome. I'm having a blast with it. If you haven't tried it, and if you haven't tried it where you actually see the data collecting on your data collector, and then you do an import, and then you look at, that's where some of the magic happens. And then that product amongst, the BLK line in particular is really suited for the RCS, the Reality Cloud Studio program. And so you end up, you take this with the Arc or the To-Go. Both of them are mobile products. The To-Go is handheld and the Arc's up on the rod. So you look at the raw data and you're like, it looks good, but it's like, is it going to look good? When you push it into RCS, that mesh modeling process is just, it's stellar.
Killer.
So I'm kind of in love with the Arc right now. Don't tell RTC, don't tell GS18, but it's a good time.
I am as well, actually. I just had another demo with LB at Topo. It's a really good scanner, especially for indoors too, like a big indoors. To put on a backpack and just walk through a school for like K-12 or something like that. Yeah.
It's great. Nice. It's really a wonderful instrument. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
So Ryan, before we let you get out of here, we have one more question that we ask every one of our guests. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
I have a couple, and
got like 10 of them probably. One for each era.
I got to make sure let me it's I know there's a number of versions of it, but a smooth sea never made a skilled mariner. A skilled mariner was never formed by a smooth sea. And really what I have in that is that every challenge we're presented is truly an opportunity. And I've tried at every turn, and I've not been successful at every turn. I mean, I've failed at things and learned from them and bounced back. But we need adversity to become better at life. And it's that old saying that we can do hard things, and then we have to remember that. And you really, if you don't do the hard things, you'll stay where you are. But if you challenge yourself, if you push yourself, you will be surprised at what you can accomplish. And really, I really believe this, but when you push yourself, I think that you end up doing things that make the world a better place also.
Yeah. So well said.
Definitely. Right.
So well said. Well, guys, thank you so much, Russ. As always, thanks for sitting in with us this evening. Will,
Thanks for having me.
Been great. Ryan, really appreciate your time. We're definitely going to have a part 2.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
I look forward to it. And, I'm not kidding. I'd love to do it at Hexagon Live. I mean, I could probably get our marketing people to, maybe even help us shoot it if that's the case. I do know that there's a number of studios that they have that they do some podcast recordings in. But if we're all going to be there, it'd be a shame for us not to capitalize on that.
Yes. Absolutely. No. The GEOHOLICS are going to be there. We had a booth, and we're going to be recording podcasts there. So
definitely for sure.
Yeah,
heck yeah.
But separately, regardless,
you want to do the crime scene
I want to
thing.
be a friend.
Yes.
I want to be scanned forensically. Let's make this happen. Yes, Private Citizen Russ.
I will. Hey, we could probably set that up, and there'd be some good content for a podcast or so. Something for you guys.
Oh yeah,
Russ, if you want to do that, man, I'll bring the trajectory rods. I'll bring the blood kit, the evidence markers. I'll bring it all. We'll set it up.
Let's do it.
That, and then at some point in my life, I want to dress up like George Washington.
Easy, buddy.
I want to survey like the olden times. Like I want to be like a colonial surveyor. You know what I mean?
So what if you dress up like George Washington and you dress up like George Washington and be the victim in my crime? You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
we'll bring you out to our Tombstone event, Russ. We'll bring you out to the Tombstone event. We're going to scan the mine next year. We're doing the underground mine, so you can come on out.
Went out.
Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'd like to I'll get in on that.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. But
yeah.
We have one of the major Hexagon offices is in Tucson, in downtown Tucson. It's a wonderful HQ for, I think it's actually the U.S. mining headquarters for Hexagon. And so we were out there doing a little workshop, and we finished around 4:00. And I said, look, if we don't go to Tombstone, I'm going to have a real problem with this. And now we ended up out there a whole bunch of times. So we go to Tombstone, and I'm a photographer. I just a real passion for photography. I had all my gear. So I said, look, we are going to recreate the shootout at the OK Corral. And so we lined up in the same formation as the display over here. And we all had our cell phones in our hands like little pistols. And I timed it. It's a great picture. I love it. It's one of my favorites of my Leica era.
Awesome.
And Will, if I'd have known that, like if I'd have seen you after this, just so you guys know that I'm a selfie hound. Like I do selfies all over the place, but I do it for 2 reasons. And there's a little sentimentality in there. I like to remember who I was with, where I was, what I was doing. And I'm 49 years old. I used to bang my head into other dudes for fun. Yeah. And so I really like the selfie helps centers me in the things that I'm doing out in the world. And I take a lot of selfies with people. And the new team I got, the old team knew about it all the time. They the new team, when we started, getting, I was like, hey, everybody get together. We're doing a selfie. And they'd be like, huh? They've embraced it now. It's just a thing. So when I see you guys, awesome. We're definitely doing a selfie.
We're doing it.
No doubt.
Sure. Absolutely. Definitely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. Appreciate everything. Great conversation. So much more to come. Adding value, making friends. Can confirm. Mm-hmm. Check those boxes. If anyone would like to be a guest on a future show, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com. Everclear, amphetamine, available everywhere. Until next time, everyone, be safe and healthy.
Thank you, guys.
Wait.
That's how he does that.
Wow, you held so still. I thought the video froze. What? It still says record though.
hit the stop.